What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. Thank goodness it's Thursday, or sure happy it's Thursday. That's it. Sure happy it's Thursday. I get them confused sometime. And so tomorrow, July 3rd, is the official holiday for Independence Day. And then the actual Independence Day, of course, is going to be Saturday, July 4th. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to have a lot of fun. We will be live tomorrow, so tune in, and we'll have more information to share with you. So we got a lot to talk about today, and we're going to get right on into it. The big news right now, and of course, it's almost impossible to find anything that isn't COVID-19, or isn't the bad economy, or isn't Black Lives Matter, or isn't any of this stuff that's going on here. But the big story that's happening right now is the FBI has arrested Jeffrey Epstein's confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell. Apparently, she was living in this very posh estate in Bedford, New Hampshire, which is just south of Manchester. And she's been there for quite a while. And apparently, the FBI knew she was there. And they've just been sitting and watching her and sitting her and watching her and sitting her and watching her. Why they decided to move on to her today, big question. You know, is it another distraction from something they don't want us thinking about? But I can imagine that phones are ringing in London because of Prince Andrew, in Israel itself because this was an intelligence operation, down in who knows where in the Caribbean, in Washington, D.C. So apparently this woman, and she's a socialite. It's not like she needed the money. She just sort of fell in with Jeffrey Epstein, and they were doing what they were doing here. So she's been arrested on child sex trafficking charges and perjury. And everybody's talking about this place where she was living, and they don't know who owns it or how she got access to it, but they're saying it's an absolutely gorgeous place. So much for hiding out in a hole in the ground here. So she now faces 2 counts of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, 2 counts of conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 2 counts of perjury. And there's a couple of other smaller counts as well. Now, apparently, there is a new book coming on out saying that former President Bill Clinton had an affair with Ghislaine Maxwell and apparently was cheating on Hillary. Ooh, imagine my shock and surprise. And, of course, Bill Clinton denies cheating on Hillary, but apparently he engaged in the romps during overseas trips on Epstein's private plane, a customized Boeing 727 that's since become known as the Lolita Express. Now, do you remember when Epstein supposedly committed suicide? And they were taking pictures of his island home down there in the Caribbean, and they could see all kinds of people all over it. And the next day, they went back and took a look through the windows. All the computer equipment was gone. All the electronics were gone. And then we had that confidant of him come on out saying every room had TV cameras and microphones in it. Every single room. Anybody who did anything on that island, there was a video trail. It was a blackmail operation. It was a gigantic honey trap blackmail operation. Ooh, I get to have sex with an underage girl. I get to do something that's illegal and immoral and unethical. What a thrill that's going to be. And they would go down to the island, or they'd go to his home in Florida, or they'd go to his mansion in New York, and they'd get caught. And they're under control of whoever has those videos. And that's the really big question since Epstein supposedly passed away. I'm not convinced he's dead yet. But somebody has all of that blackmail information, and they're going to be using it. Too valuable not to use. All right, getting back to this renaming of bases and stuff like this, President Trump has said that he will veto the defense bill if it includes renaming military bases, and apparently the House Armed Services Committee just passed an amendment to that very effect. So Trump is out there on Twitter saying he's not going to budge on this. And he says he will veto the defense authorization bill if the Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren amendment, which will lead to the renaming plus other bad things of Fort Bragg, Fort Robert E. Lee, and many other military bases from which we won 2 world wars, is in the bill. So there's a showdown shaping up between Congress and the president over this issue. Now, I think this has gone way, way over the top. You know, we've jumped the shark on this whole thing. Apparently, the Washington Redskins are going to continue playing at FedEx Field unless the organization decides to change its name. Now, the team is looking to move to a new stadium in the near future, but their relocation from Maryland to the RFK Stadium in D.C. now hinges on the team's willingness to change its name. Maybe they should change the name to Watch This Space. Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe chairman wants presidents removed from Mount Rushmore, and we're seeing that. It was all over Fox News. They're talking about it. And the one that really bothers me about that is how easy it would be to do. I mean, that rock is fragile. Most people don't realize it. The original design for Mount Rushmore went down to their clothing, almost to the bottom of that rock cut. And the reason Teddy Roosevelt is so far back is because originally he was carved up basically on the same level as Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln. But there was a landslide and the original Teddy Roosevelt disappeared. They recarved him back there. It's very fragile. It would be very easy for somebody to get back there in some of those service tunnels and plant enough explosives to blow that thing up. So if there is going to be some kind of a false flag attack in the near future, I would definitely put Mount Rushmore on the target list, as it were. Okay, over in Wisconsin, college students demand Lincoln statue be torn down because while he was anti-slavery, he wasn't pro-black enough. Okay, how would you even measure something like that? I mean, from where I sit, ending slavery is a good thing for the black people and also for the white people who were slaves. But they want his statue torn down because, yeah, he freed the slaves. Big deal. He freed the slaves. Anybody could have done it. It's no big deal. But he wasn't pro-black enough. Well, you know, I have to share something with you. There were no Black Lives Matter t-shirts back in Lincoln's day. So he couldn't have worn one. So how do you measure how pro-black somebody is? And when did we stop judging people by their actions and start judging them by what we imagine is going on inside their mind, which is exactly what they're doing here. Their whole attitude is, forget about the slavery thing. Oh, yes, it was a good thing. It was, you know, nice that, you know, we got to leave the plantations and move into the ghettos and, you know, sit around and whine all day about how unfair life is. You know, but we know that inside his brain, Abraham Lincoln wasn't pro-black enough. So we want his statue to go. Anyway, you watch. They're going to go after the pennies next. I mean, they're getting really silly. They're going to want Lincoln off the penny. I heard somebody out there the other day saying that the English language itself is racist and ought to be basically banned. I don't know what they're going to replace it with, Ebonics. Somebody was even talking about, and I think this was a joke, that bakeries can no longer sell white bread. I mean, it really is way, way, way over the top here. But you watch, at some point, somebody's going to go after the pennies and say, we need a black woman on the front of the penny. Or we'll just put the flag or something. You watch. That's my prediction. Somebody's going to say, we've got to change the penny. All right, the LA school police chief has resigned after the school board cut $25 million in school police funding and ordered all officers off campus. This is another case of insanity, whether it's the schools or the city. There has to be a police force. Look what happened at Chop Up in Seattle. 530% increase in crime with the police not there to respond. And the so-called leaders of these so-called autonomous zones weren't taking responsibility, you know, for the safety of the people who were there. Rapes were up, muggings were up, robberies were up, breaking and entering was up. It was a crime spree. And they're still talking all over the country about, well, we've got to disband the police here. They're really, really bad people. There are bad individuals in the police department. They should be arrested and prosecuted when they kill somebody outside the letter of the law. But we need the police force to keep order. We need the police force to guarantee some semblance of justice in the streets of America. I love that one sheriff down in Florida. He's going to deputize every gun-carrying man in his entire county. They're all going to be sheriff's deputies to deal with any uprisings by Black Lives Matter. All righty, here is an article from Blabberbuzz basically taking Jared Kushner to the woodshed and accusing him of being a moron, of being an idiot, and of sabotaging Trump's agenda. And according to a report from The Spectator, various conservatives close to the administration agree that Kushner, counselor to the president, is disrupting Trump's agenda. What they can't decide on is whether it's because of his intellect not being where it should be, or he has his own agenda. But a conservative activist who works with the Trump administration said Trump has a Jared problem. Jared is a total blank up. Everything he touches turns to lead. I've been commenting on that for quite a while. You know, just being the son-in-law doesn't qualify you for government service, especially inside the White House. And Trump has been getting bad information from somebody, getting bad advice from somebody. And he's making horrible, horrible mistakes in foreign policy, in domestic policy, in his re-election campaign. And I think Kushner is definitely one source of the bad information, bad advice here. All right, the FBI has arrested multiple Democrat officials in a shocking bribes for votes scandal. And it's only July and already they're cheating this whole situation. Texas Lieutenant Governor is out there saying, well, look, if they're willing to burn the country, tear statues down, why not steal some ballots out of a mailbox? I understand what he's saying. I don't like the attitude. I don't want to see the country burn. I don't want to see the statues torn down. And I want to have fair and honest, verifiable elections in this country. We don't have any of those here. Okay, as of today, the Mississippi state flag is stripped of its official status, and the flag was removed from its position out the state capitol and sent to a museum. And so now the question is going to be, are they going to try and come up with a flag that simply replaces what's in that upper left corner, or are they going to design a completely new flag? And oh boy, I can see the argument that's going to build over that one. Oh, it's got to have rainbow colors. It's got to have this. It's got to have that. Amazing. Okay, let's talk about COVID-19. It's another thing we're getting saturated news about. And I'm a little bit alarmed by all these stories where there's miscounting going on of the COVID-19 cases, and always the miscounting drives the numbers up. Now, if these were all honest mistakes, you would figure half of them would push the numbers back up, and the other half would push them back down, and it would more or less even out. But all of these miscounting stories talk about how the counts have been doubled upward. I think they're still trying to inflate the numbers to push their agenda, to push their vaccine, or to keep us all distracted. And I'm feeling more and more like COVID-19 is a distraction. There's something going on in the world that the United States government does not want you paying attention to. And when we open up the phone lines and you want to call in, I'd be interested in what you think we're being protected from, or what's being hidden from us. Okay, Democrat tyrant Gavin Newsom closes down all indoor dining, museums, theaters in California after allowing Black Lives Matter Antifa to riot. And apparently he's rolling back the state's reopening due to the surge in coronavirus cases. Now, here in Indiana, Governor Holcomb came on out and announced rollback 4.5, which means they're taking more steps for the rollback, but they're slowing down. The good news is all events for the 4th of July are greenlit for this weekend. So the fireworks will be flying, and we're going to be having a lot of fun on that one. Over at the University of Massachusetts, Dean of Nursing Leslie Neal Boylan has been fired for saying everyone's life matters. Why is that such a problem for anybody? I mean, to me, it's common sense. Yes, if one life matters, all life matters. And this idea that you have to say Black Lives Matter, and if you say anything else, you're racist. I mean, if you think the message that's implicit in there, that somehow Black lives are worth more than non-Black lives. And I'm not going to go along with that any more than I'd go along with somebody saying that white lives are more important than other colored lives. We're all unique individuals. We all have unique talents, skills, ambitions. And your skin color really doesn't matter. It's determined by life experience and genetics. And you go back to Dr. Martin Luther King. We should be judged by our character. We should be judged by what we're doing, not by what somebody imagines we're thinking, or how we're dressed, or what color our skin is. But there's an implicit message in Black Lives Matter that somehow the others don't. And that they react with such anger when you imply that all lives are equally important. It only reinforces that message. All lives are important. No, they're not. Only Black lives matter. A little bit out there. And I saw this video where there was this, protest, Black Lives Matter. And the guy running the camera is shouting at the crowd and saying, Black Lives Matter, yeah. All Black Lives Matter, yeah. What about all those black babies being aborted at Planned Parenthood? Dead silence. Here's another one of those stories about this huge COVID case counting deception at the CDC. And apparently they have been caught combining the results of two different tests. Viral PCR and antibody tests, even though the numbers that are positive are from the same patient. And so they get a much larger number than they would if they were tracking per patient rather than per test. Now that to me is too obvious a mistake to believe it was just accidental by the CDC. Apparently the CDC is grossly overcounting active China coronavirus cases, causing states to keep their economies closed indefinitely. Amazing here. Oh, and to add to the confusion and the fear-mongering, they've discovered a new flu virus similar to H1N1 in 2009 has been identified. That H1N1 in 2009 is the one I used to call the when pigs fly flu. I don't know. It's starting to just feel fake. It's starting to feel scripted. It's starting to feel like a fairy tale. It's feeling like a really cheap science fiction movie. Oh, there's another germ over here. There's another virus. There's this. There's that. Be afraid. Be afraid. Now for previews of coming attractions. It's absurd here. Now, the other day we were talking about the fact that all these monuments of Confederates and slaveholders and slave owners are being torn down, except for the Jewish ones. That monuments to famous Jews who happened to own slaves so far are being untouched. But that has changed. And apparently Israel's plan to annex the West Bank has crossed a line for a lot of groups, including the British arm of Black Lives Matter, who had the establishment's full support until they came out with one tweet saying that they supported Palestine. And now everybody's running for cover. Oh, we're not associated with those people. We're not connected with them. A little bit of power on display. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. We're talking about how Israel's planned annexation of portions of the West Bank may have crossed a line for a lot of people, including Black Lives Matter. Over in Britain, they're basically saying with a single tweet, we support Palestine, we stand with Palestine. And immediately the backlash was just swift in coming, with all of their supporters in the establishment backing away and saying, oh, no, we can't get behind that. You know, oh, you criticize Israel, you must be evil people. And apparently Black Lives Matter in Washington, D.C. yesterday was chanting, "Israel, we know you, you murdered children too." Now, Democrats are calling for an aid cut to Israel over the annexation. Democratic lawmakers signed a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calling to cut aid to Israel if it proceeds with annexation. 4 women in the U.S. Congress say that if Israel proceeds with further annexation plans in the occupied West Bank, it would lay the groundwork for Israel becoming an apartheid state. Well, they're already there. So Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Betty McCollum, and Pramila Jayapal are making the claim in a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that they are circulating for signatures among colleagues. They probably will not get very many. But, yes, I think it's a good idea. Why do we keep paying for all of this? Although this letter overlooks the current apartheid reality, it is not typical for U.S. lawmakers to refer to Israel apartheid at all. It is even rarer for members of Congress to call for Israel to pay any price for its actions. So if you wonder who's really running this country, there it is. Okay, Lee Camp is out there saying how the media used this bounty scandal to stop the threat of peace in Afghanistan. I saw several different articles today along the same theme. Basically, the timing is suspicious. We were pulling out of Afghanistan, and now all of a sudden we've got a reason to stay. And it's somebody doesn't want peace to break out. Well, again, look how long they dragged out the war in Vietnam, even though they knew they couldn't win. Because they didn't want to face the humiliation of an American defeat. And maybe that's what we're being distracted from, pulling out of Afghanistan, because we haven't really heard anything about that in the corporate media, have we? Or how badly things are going for us in Syria. Maybe the U.S. is faltering on all of these little countries that they've gone in and invaded. And that's what we're being distracted from. I can sort of imagine that towards the end of World War II, that the German people weren't being told how bad things were going. So just something to think about. But I think all this COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter and tear down statues and monuments and everything, it's a distraction. It's a show. It's a smokescreen in front of our eyes. And we've got to find out what's behind the curtain. So Lee Camp is there, how the media used the bounty scandal to stop the threat of peace in Afghanistan. The U.S. claim of Russian bounty plot in Afghanistan is dubious and dangerous. This is from Max Blumenthal, saying this story has flaws, and it's clearly intended to prolong the war in Afghanistan using Russiagate tactics to continue pushing the Democratic Party to the right. I remember when the Democratic Party was the party of peace. Now they're becoming war hawks. Trying to crank up a whole new Cold War with Russia, also China, because Cold Wars make money. You make weapons, they don't necessarily have to work. You sell them for huge profits. You share some of the profits with your pet Congress critters. And the machine just keeps on going. And as long as the war remains cold, you never actually have to prove that any of this stuff works. It's a racket, it really is. Meanwhile, paratroopers from the 4th Brigade 25th Infantry Division only had a few days' notice to get prepared for an exercise where they flew from Alaska to practice seizing a Pacific air base on the island of Guam. That happened earlier today. Syria is preparing for a military confrontation with Turkey in the northeast. Looks like things are getting tense there. The Syrian army and the National Defense Forces have put their forces on high alert in response to the new round of aggressive actions by the Turkish army and its proxies in northeastern Syria. Several convoys of government forces, including several T-62M battle tanks and a number of trucks equipped with heavy machine guns, deployed to the countryside of Ain Issa, after intense Turkish artillery strikes on positions of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and the army near Al-Nuyat in northern Al-Hasaka and Hashana in northern Raqqa. Another group of government troops deployed near the town of Tel Tamir. Everybody's poised here. It's really a question. Where's it going to break loose? Who's going to start this thing going? Oh. Now, the U.S. Air Force's top general, Chief of Staff General Dave Goldfein, came out with this blunt assessment saying that the current Pentagon budget is not large enough to buy new nuclear weapons and conventional forces simultaneously. That's what the Pentagon always says. More money, more money, more money, more money, more money. Leave the ones that are out there. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show. And I just got an interesting little email. You're talking about the Redskins having to change their name to move to a new stadium. And this letter writer points out Oklahoma, one of the states of the Union here, and the state's name is derived from the Choctaw words Okla and Humma, meaning red people. So the Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory were merged into the state of Oklahoma when it became the 46th state to enter the Union on November 16th, 1907. So what are they going to do now? Change the name of Oklahoma because it says red people? I saw an article the other day where they really want the city of St. Louis to change their name because it's offensive to somebody. If you start changing names that are potentially offensive to the indigenous Americans, you realize how many places would have to change their names. Like, for example, Illinois, Manhattan. What about Indiana? It really is. We've gone over the shark. We're so far over the shark can't see us anymore. All right, let's talk about the economic news here for a little bit. The U.S. House passes a bill to sanction Chinese banks over Hong Kong. A lot of friction building up over there. And it's another example of the United States flinging sanctions all over the world as if the world still has to come to the United States to do business. And each new sanction is a reason for the rest of the world to do business someplace else. It's ultimately self-defeating. Now, I hate to say I told you so, but I did. Over in Great Britain, the British judge refuses to give Venezuela control of 800 million pounds of gold bullion sitting in the Bank of England because the UK does not recognize Nicolas Maduro as the country's president. Now, there is a government in Venezuela, and it's not over in the jungle with Guaido. I think there's more to this than simply, a finger in the eye of Maduro. Remember when we did those episodes of America's Book of Secrets for the History Channel and the gold conspiracy? And it came on out that gold deposited in places like the New York Federal Reserve, JP Morgan, Bank of England, Bank of France, wasn't really there, had been rehypothecated. Too many people were laying claim to it. And remember when Germany first discovered that there was fake gold being returned by these various banks and stuff, and they demanded their gold. And the Bank of England said, well, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a few years to get it back to you. So I think the playing games with gold is catching up with them. And in this case, they're just simply using the excuse that Maduro, he's a kleptomaniac, he's insane, he's evil, and we don't recognize his government. Well, you know something? When you deposit something in a safety deposit box, you are allowed to take it back out again if that is your safety deposit box. Who's got the key? Who has the key to the safety deposit box? Who put that gold into the Bank of England to begin with? That's who should take it out. And it certainly wasn't Guaido, whatever his name is. Okay, Citigroup is saying oil will never return to $100. That's good news for drivers, bad news for every other industry that depends on high oil prices. Former German chancellor says that the US and EU alliance could end. This is former Chancellor Schroeder. And he basically wrote this on June 30th in the Commerce sheet. Former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder has condemned possible new U.S. sanctions against the Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline as deliberate termination of the transatlantic partnership. A draft law currently under discussion in the U.S. Congress is a widespread, unjustified attack on the European economy and an unacceptable interference with EU sovereignty and the energy security of Western Europe. Schroeder writes in a statement for a public hearing of the Economic Committee scheduled for Wednesday. That would have happened yesterday. Okay, we're going to do some science news. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines now. If you want to call on in, we're going to do some science news now. This is a really cool story. This is from yourdestinationnow.com. And apparently scientists have been able to create these microscopic lenses made with spider silk. And with that, they're able to produce extremely tiny cameras that can take high-resolution images inside the human body with far more clarity than you get with remote sensing technologies like X-rays and PET scans and so forth. So that is really, really cool. Spider silk is amazing stuff. It really is. So anyway. All right. Secretive Facebook research lab reveals the world's thinnest virtual reality headset that looks like a pair of sunglasses and has holographic lenses for a more vivid viewing experience. Well, that would be fun to play with. I remember hearing about virtual reality, years ago at SIGGRAPH, and every attempt just kind of, it wasn't really there. Apparently, AT&T is being sued for allegedly transferring a victim's number to thieves in a 1.9 million crypto coin heist. So, NASA astronauts Chris Cassidy and Robert Behnken began or have completed a 7-hour spacewalk to replace aging batteries on the International Space Station. And SpaceX successfully launched the U.S. Space Force GPS satellite into orbit on a Falcon 9 rocket. Way to go, SpaceX. Now, NASA has delayed the launch of its Perseverance rover until at least July 30th due to problems with its launch vehicle in the latest setback. And NASA has to get the Mars 2020 craft into space by August 15th, or it will miss the current launch window and have to wait 2 years again. Apparently, now beavers are bad for the environment. This is an article coming out of Daily Mail in Great Britain. Dam builders contribute to global warming by melting permafrost and releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Well, actually, if you look at beavers, they are very disruptive to the environment. You know, they'll build a dam and they'll create a beaver pond, which creates wetlands, and it completely transforms the terrain upstream of the dam. And of course, they'll build their little houses in the middle. But for some reason, the environmentalists think that it's okay for a beaver to build a dam for a beaver's purposes, even though it's damaging the environment, but it's not okay for humans to do exactly the same thing. And I think that's ridiculous. Beavers, by their nature, build dams. Humans, by their nature, build dams and other things. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, timing is everything. I'm very curious about Jeffrey Epstein's matter. Why, first of all, why is she staying in America? Why didn't she go to France or Brazil or another country where the FBI could not touch her? But why now instead of maybe a month or two ago?
That's a very, very good question. Both of those are very, very good questions. For a while we were hearing in the news that everybody thought she was somewhere in South America. And it turns out, no, she was just, 5 hours north of New York in Bedford, New Hampshire, and the FBI's known she was there all along.
Yeah, but why now? Right before the holidays and everything else that's going on, why now? And the other thing you mentioned about are people being distracted. I don't think it's so much people are being distracted because there's so much stuff that's going on. The one concern that everyone should be concerned about is the economy. Michael, I really do believe that we're heading for a major crash, and there's no answer to recover. And there's no answer to fix it. The smoke and mirrors, they have ran out of ammunition.
I agree.
So, but again, I don't know. Well, Michael, I'm going to let you go. You take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, over in southern China, And, China does have its good points. I know right now the fashion is bad China, Wuhan, counterfeiting, virus, and so forth and so on. But they do some cool stuff as well. And apparently over in Foshan, southern China, they have just opened a restaurant completely staffed by robots, including droid waitresses, automated baristas, and AI-powered chefs. This restaurant has over 20 different types of robots, and apparently, they've got a pretty good menu, and it's very successful, and people are coming in. It's your basic, workday food, noodles, burgers, things like that, and it can serve nearly 600 diners at once with hundreds of freshly prepared dishes. And I saw some photos and videos of this place, and it's really cool. I don't see myself being in Foshan, southern China anytime soon, but if I were, I would definitely want to make the trip to see this. Okay, the moon is a very fascinating place. And apparently, the moon has a bonanza of metals like iron and titanium deep below its surface, according to NASA, raising questions over this long-held theory that the moon was formed when a Mars-sized planet smashed into our world 4.5 billion years ago. And I know this has been a popular theory for quite a few years, but there are significant differences between the lunar regolith and what we find here on Earth, suggesting that the moon may in fact be a captured body. But here's the part I'm thinking about. Iron is very abundant here in planet Earth, titanium less so. And at some point, if somebody could pencil out mining the moon for titanium, then you're going to see the whole outer space explode. The way things did with the early colonies, when the colonies were just starving along with small ships and everything until it was possible to make money. And then all of a sudden the ships got bigger and travel got much easier, much less expensive. All right, we're going to take another phone call from Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I've got a possible answer to Jim's question about why now with Jiz Maxwell.
Yes.
And that is the Durham report's about to come out. And we already have corroborating written evidence that Biden was involved in Russiagate. And This is another one of the FBI's attempts to deflect. Here's another big win. It's like they wasted all that effort on the college entrance stuff, right? It has nothing to do with the federal crime, but it made them look good. Or the college basketball recruiting scandal. What the hell were they doing in that? It just gives them little wins before a big loss, right? But that's my postulation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing, Mike, is Ghislaine Maxwell. I'll be willing to bet you any money that this lavish estate that she lives on is MAGA group supplied. All these Jewish billionaires that funded Epstein as part of the Rape Ranch and Rape Island and Lolita Express airplane and everything else, blackmail ring and espionage ring to suborn the United States and the leadership of the United States. I'm sure that they've been hiding her out there as well. And there again, there's never going to be a resolution until we see what's his name, the guy that bought Maxwell a $77 million home, and he owns The Limited and Victoria's Secret. You remember the guy's name?
I don't remember the guy's name, but I know who you're talking about.
Well, he's been totally out of the news. Has none of the guys, Bronfman, even Steven Spielberg is a funder of that. So at any rate, it's interesting, and it's also interesting that we talked about how Black Lives Matter and Antifa have been funded by guys like Soros,
yes,
and how it's carrying out a political agenda. And as soon as they open their mouth about Israeli apartheid, boom, they're shut down.
Yes.
Just like that. They can burn down acres and acres of city property and people's businesses and so on and so forth. But man, you talk about Israeli apartheid and the funding dries up and everybody knows it.
Yep.
So you want to know where it's at? Like, you want to know who controls you? Look how easy. The mayors couldn't stop them. The governors couldn't stop them. The presidents couldn't stop them. But you know what? They're shut down right away by when they talk about Israel. And watch how the media, if Black Lives Matter persists in apartheid, why wouldn't they? If that's what they're about, is justice. It's really not what they're about. But if they persist in that, watch the media turn on them. The owned media by the same people who own them.
Yes.
You know, watch how quickly that turns. So also it's interesting when you talked about the Rashida Tlaib and the people who have come out against Israeli, aid to Israel because of the annexation.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you mention Ilhan Omar.
I think she was on the list.
I hope
I'd
so,
have to go
but
back
I
and
think
look
that
at
she's
it.
been co-opted already.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I remember seeing that article and looking at the picture. I don't remember her in it. But at any rate, she's already been co-opted. Of course, they had her on her brother, legally entered in the United States, the marriage thing, campaign violation. So she's already compromised, and so she won't say much because the Jewish supremacists will squash her like a bug now that they have something on her. So I'm sure she's shut up. But anyways, that's my little insight for today, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be connected to the Durham report, which is due out. And I imagine that probably tomorrow we're going to see a lot of news dump of embarrassing stuff so that by the time we all come back on Monday, it'll be old news. That's something the corporate media has been doing, for a long, long time. Bad news is released on the end of the week. Good news is started on the beginning of the next week.
Right. It's that's gone for our whole lives, Mike. That's going on.
Yep.
It's just simply a news manipulation, public relations technique. But burying stories, and those are the ones that they can't bury. They just bury them as much as they can. Everything else, so many things though that they can bury and are buried. They don't even talk about it all.
All right, well, Peter, I'm going to have to go. We got to take a break for commercials. We have another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, how you doing, Mike? What? Listen, I just want to comment on Epstein, and then one thing about what gentleman from New Jersey said yesterday. But first, Epstein, I'll be honest with you. I was shocked when I heard that this morning. I was listening to David Knight, actually, InfoWars, and it came through. I don't know what the deal is, but I'll tell you this, Mike. This is real, okay? If they're going to keep her alive, I would say this could actually finally bring down this disgusting, corrupt U.S. government.
I have the opposite theory. I'm waiting for news reports coming out saying that she's terribly depressed.
Yeah, I know. The corrupt corporate oligarchy, and it could destroy our horrendous foreign policy, because that's how compromised I think so many people are in this country. So that's very hopeful, Mike. I'll tell you the truth. Now, as far as Barr goes, I was convinced Barr was behind the murder of Epstein in the first place. That he basically gave instructions not to protect him. But now I don't know. Maybe I told you before. I used to be a correctional officer. Okay.
Yes.
There is a different perspective. Somebody who's spent their lives as an investigator and as a lawyer. Okay, like Barr did. Prosecutor basically.
Yes.
And somebody who's been and somebody who knows about the security aspect of being a peace officer or law enforcement officer, whatever else you want to call it. understanding, protecting people, protecting property, stuff like that. So maybe, I'm probably grasping the straws, that maybe Barr just didn't understand real security and how dangerous putting Epstein into a was actually a holding prison. To say it's not really there's nobody sentenced yet there at the MCC. It's basically like a county jail.
Yeah.
But really in any prison, and that things happen there. Okay, very dangerous, and it's not a place you're going to put somebody who's probably the most famous or infamous inmate in the world in, that knows the kind of stuff he knew about people. So if that's the case, and I'm hoping it is, but believe me, I'm probably grasping at straws. Maybe they will keep her alive, and maybe she will start to sing a concert that I think nobody will ever forget. It'll be the greatest concert of all time.
Well, I would certainly love to see that, but right now I'm glad I'm not her life insurance carrier.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's true too. What he's got to do is, what they need to do is either put her in a military prison, very strict, a very strict military type prison, or put her in the custody of U.S. Marshals and make sure you get the best possible deputy marshals who know what they're doing. Otherwise,
they're going to put her where she can be gotten at. Is what's going to happen.
Well, no, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, you're probably
Mark,
right.
Do you have more to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what.
All right, well then stay on the line. Stay on the line. I got to put you on hold. We're going to take a break for station identification. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. We're talking with Mark in North Carolina. And Mark, you said you had one more question you wanted to ask.
Oh yeah, Mike. Well, Mike. Yeah, as far as what Dustin was saying yesterday again, I don't know, Dustin. Keep it up. You keep it up. You keep talking about these stupid cases. I think they came up with about 50-something thousand new cases, so-called cases yesterday. These aren't cases. This is fraud. It's even coming out. It's in writing. Texas. There's something in Texas about it. There's Minnesota Department of Health. These so-called tests are worthless. If you had a cold, or if you had something else, it's going to show, especially the coronavirus cold, or even if you had the flu, or one of these flu shots, you're going to test positive for the coronavirus, okay, or for the COVID, whatever you want to call it, all right? And then they're purposely calling it coronavirus. They're purposely saying, there's an agenda there, just like when we talk about Epstein and all that. There's agendas all over the place. Somehow I think this is all probably mixed up together. You cannot, this is not real, Justin, okay? Those masks are not doing you any good. Take the stupid mask off. Get out there, and I'm in the sunshine right now, okay? I'm on my porch, enjoying the sunshine. It's like 90 degrees here, sunny, okay? Nice fresh air. Just mowed the lawn again, okay? That's what you should be doing, Dustin. Not hiding under your bed, worrying some stupid mask and thinking the world's coming to an end. Now, the world could come to an end if we keep on pushing Russia's button and causing God forbid, a nuclear war, and then the world could come to an end, Justin. But this stupid virus is not going to do it. Mask doesn't do you any good, Justin. But, the only reason I care about what you say, Dustin, is because you're convinced you're getting other people to believe this stuff, okay? That's why I get so angry about it, because you're actually playing along with the very establishment that basically wants you to wear a mask as a sign of submission. They know doesn't do you any good. It's a sign of submission, Dustin. Work on the immune system, Justin. That might do you some good. I don't know what the deal is with you. I don't know how healthy you are, not healthy. I don't know what kind of shape you're in. I don't know any of that stuff. But I suggest you work on the immune system. You're so, worried about it. Plenty of fresh fruits, plenty of vegetables, preferably raw, fish, grass-fed. If you're going to eat meat, grass-fed and free range, okay, beef and chicken, and a lot of seeds, different kind of nuts like almonds, pumpkin seeds, okay, and you'll be fine. No guarantees. There's no guarantees in life at all, okay? I mean, I could be standing here now. There's not a cloud. There's a couple of clouds, but still somehow I could get a freak lightning storm, and it's all over right there. I mean, anything can happen. An alien could land on my front right here by the fence here. An alien from Mars or somewhere else could land, and then shoot me with one of their ray guns. I don't know. I mean, anything is possible, Justin. Take it easy, my man. Get the mask off. Get you some fresh air and some sunshine, and you'll be fine. That's it. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Mark. We're going to switch over to Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, Mike. No, it's nice to talk to you again. Well, I think people need to take a very good look at how many times they've been lied to us. Okay, we've got uranium-1 lied to us. We've got Hillary Clinton. She went all over the place. We got Lavoie Finicum being killed because of that, because that's where uranium-1 happened. We got Ukraine lied to us. COINTELPRO with the Biden lied to us. We got 9/11 lied to us. We got Afghanistan lied to us. We got Iraq lied to us. We got all of these things lying to us. And for 1 minute, we're going to sit here? No. For several months, we're going to sit here and believe that COVID-19 is a serious outbreak in this town. And you know what? It might be something. But overall, I don't know. People need to look this up. I don't understand why people won't look this up. You cannot get a virus unless you are injected with it. Look it up. Okay? You can't catch it from somebody sneezing on you. You can catch a bacteria. You can catch a cold. But you cannot connect a virus to anything like that. It has to be injected in you. And so the second wave, guess what? They got a vaccine for you. And what comes with the vaccine? An injection. And then you got this smiling Bill Gates and his wife. If you watch this little video that they show, well, people didn't pay attention to the first virus, but they will on this one. And they smile so discreetly like, yeah, that's it now. Okay, so people, wake up. You're being played. This is the takeover. They want you enslaved to their world. When you get your vaccine, it's ID 2020. What is that? Well, it's nanoparticles. They're going to shoot into your body. And guess what? You're being sprayed all over the place in your skies and stuff and whatnot. I know you don't believe that, but I'll just say it. And people are getting these nanoparticles all in them. And then you got 5G coming up at, oh my God, 60 gigahertz or 60 hertz. 60 gigahertz is what it is. And that's terrible. And I believe the body works at like 7.3 hertz. And so you're going to throw 60 gigahertz at us in this 5G and whatnot? And we're all sitting here pretending like nobody's trying to hurt us. Nobody's trying to hurt us. The government's all on our side. Wear your mask. Do this. Do that. No, the beaches are closed. Nobody's dying from this. They're funneling the numbers. Anybody who dies even had a COVID anything in their body, or even if they didn't, we don't know. And that's the sad thing is that we report on a whole bunch of stuff that the mainstream media reports on, and then we go with that. We already discredited the mainstream media, but we take their stories and we run with them as though as if they're real. Well, we got 400,000 people died in Tasmania or whatever it might be. We actually believe that the government-run agencies.
Andy, I've kind of allowed you to sort of run rampant all over. Is there a point to all of this? Is there a conclusion you want to come to?
Well, my conclusion is that the simple fact is that everybody who's ever perpetrated something on it, such as the Clintons, the Bushes, the Colin Powells, the Condoleezza Rices, the Obamas, all these people, they're running roughshod on it. Okay, all they're doing is giving us misinformation and making us believe that we're the terrible people and we're screwing up in this world, and we're not. We simply are not. They're screwing up. They're making us feel like we're screwing up. And they've got everybody going against each other. Have you seen all these fights? People going to restaurants because they don't want to wear a mask, and other people are kicking their butt and fighting them and stuff. Nobody's dying on the floor. I mean, Wuhan is not here. I mean, people dying and blood shedding out their faces. It's not happening here. So where is the virus? Where is the virus? I think it's on the TV. I think if you just turn your TV off, the virus goes away. It simply does. It really does.
Okay,
Just
Andy.
leave the TV off.
Thank you for the phone call, Andy. Thank you. I gave you a lot of time here, but I need to let you go because we've got callers piling up on the phone lines, and time is getting short. So we're going to switch over to Glenn in Michigan. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for taking my call, Michael. I just want to make a couple points and get your opinion on them. As far as the coronavirus statistics, if you look at them globally, and you look at them from a ratio of the population of the country to the number of cases, we far exceed everybody in the world. But
yes.
Then, if you look at it, Medicaid, and Medicare, they get $13,000 for every classification of one that's passed away from coronavirus. They get between $30,000 and $40,000 for everyone that's used a ventilator. So I'm going to shut up and get your opinion on that. Do you think that skews the stats just a little bit?
Yeah, there's no question that it is. It's a financial inducement to find coronavirus even where it doesn't exist, and it sort of reminds me of the European witch hunts, where professional witch hunters were paid to find witches. So of course they saw witches everywhere, and we're seeing exactly the same thing here.
Now, okay, I'll get off that subject for a second. I got one other point, and then I want to ask you one other question. So, you think Maxwell will commit suicide also?
I'm sure that she and Deborah Jean Palfrey are having conversations about it right now, and I'm sure that there are some people trying to figure out how they can smuggle a couple of murder hornets into her cell.
Okay. One other thing. Back to the original topic that I called into. What I don't understand is there's global complicity in this whole thing. I don't get it. There's a bigger picture here, and I have not been able to figure it. I think I'm going to die.
Okay, well, we don't know the full list of people that were availing themselves of Epstein's offerings, if you will. We know of some of the American ones. We know of Prince Andrew. And so my guess is that probably a lot of foreign leaders who come from far more repressive societies couldn't resist the temptation, and they may have blackmail information on them as well. Anybody who's in that kind of a position of power, who's offered that kind of a treat, if you will, they got to be an idiot to take it. And that's what really bothers me about like Bill Clinton and all the rest of them is how stupid do you have to be to walk onto the Lolita Express, have sex with an underage girl, and not realize you're going to be blackmailed with it?
Right. I apologize. I didn't express myself properly. The question I had is about the bigger picture about COVID. It just didn't happen in the United States. It's all over the world. I don't understand what's going on.
Well,
the world is succumbed to this whatever it is.
Well, I think there's really a virus out there, and I think it's fairly serious. But there's no question it's being hyped. It's being exploited for its shock value. And again, I think it's in order to distract us from something else we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, but it isn't just exploitation in the United States. This is global exploitation, and that's the part I don't understand.
Well, everybody's using this to further whatever their own particular agenda is. Events like this don't happen in a vacuum.
So you think every single country in the world has an agenda that they're using this for? I think there's a bigger picture than this, and I don't know what it is yet. I'm getting close to smelling it, but I don't know what it is, so I won't comment.
Okay, well, Glenn, I'll put some thought into it, and we're going to let you go and switch over to John in Austin. Hello, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. You were asking earlier about Epstein sex tapes.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the name Sean Atwood?
Okay.
He's an English guy. There's a YouTube channel, and he's produced over 300 videos on Epstein. And I'm looking at one of them now, and it's about an ex-cop who fled to Russia with Epstein sex tapes. And apparently this was verified by another cop who followed him to Russia to prove that they were there. So if you want to write his name down, it's Sean, spelled S-H-A-U-N, Atwood with 2 T's. And that last video was put out in January of this year. You want to track that down, okay?
All right, we'll track that down and see what we can find. I can't imagine that anybody who worked with Epstein would have allowed the tapes out of their own personal control. My sense is wherever those tapes are, it's still someplace deep within the United States where, if necessary, they can be shown to the victims to say, see, we've got this on you. You know,
Yeah.
Putting them over in Russia puts them, almost impractically out of reach.
Well, my thought was, yeah, we're still waiting to see them. So what is the problem? What is the hold-up? But I just thought I'd share that with you, okay?
Oh, we'll never see them. I mean, if those things were made public, their value vanishes immediately because careers and lives are destroyed. We know who the bad people are. And blackmail only works if the blackmail information is kept private. It's the threat of release that has the power. Anyway, John, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Steve Elkins. Steve, welcome to the show. What have you got to contribute?
Well, nurses are talking. Things just aren't making any sense. We've had the big tents set up outside the hospital for the overflow for COVID-19, which were not used for the most part all over the country. So that kind of got egg on their face for the people who are pushing this agenda, and it is agenda. It is a plandemic. I just want to share a couple bits of information I received here and give a little theory that, first of all, I think there was a lot, I'm talking about a lot, specific lot number of these tests that were sent around different parts of the country that they theorized they needed to shut down and keep this thing going, this plandemic going. I think Florida got a bunch. I think Texas got a bunch. I think a lot of these cities, these states, they're hot states. We call them the hot states because it's very temperature-wise hot. And I think this whole thing was planned. And let me share a little text here I got from nurses who are talking now. Who are trying to, you got to, I'm meeting a lot of nurses now who are actually saying, I figured it out. This is a scam. But I want to share a couple texts with you and share this with you and your listeners. A friend of mine runs a COVID unit at a hospital. They have a patient who needs transferred to a nursing home, but he must first have 2 consecutive negative tests for COVID-19. He is tested 2 times a week, still all positive results. The thing is, every positive test counts as a new COVID-19 case. He has been there 75 days. So if you think about one of my friends, one person equals 20 plus new cases of COVID-19. Say y'all try to share this with some people and see what is really going on in the country here. That's one. Y'all, I must be they're from the South. I'm not sure they were, but I'm getting a lot of nurses who are talking now, especially travel nurses. Another one I received here. Come to that one. There we go. A nurse in San Francisco who was giving COVID tests. After every test came back positive, she got very suspicious. So she sent in 2 separate blank tests, unused swabs. Both came back positive. She told some of her other nurses about it, so together they submitted 10 fake tests with unused swabs and fake names. They all came back positive. This is what the hell is going on here. It's beyond greed and money for hospitals. We are being controlled and manipulated beyond anything we could ever imagine. Now these nurses are talking. Even doctors now are also talking and saying something's wrong here. This isn't panning out. We've been lied to.
Yep.
So I just want to share that with Dustin and the rest of your listeners that these numbers are being padded, and I do believe those lot numbers. They have a lot of boxes of lot numbers, and they've been sent to certain regions where they need to get it back up. They're not true positives. These are all false positives, but nobody's checking. There's no oversight to check. Simply, it's a positive. Therefore, boom, there you have it, a hot spot again. We stay back inside, we put our masks on, and we shut down the economy again. This thing's planned. They're not done destroying, they're not done looting this country yet. The masterminds behind this plan.
Well, there was an article that came out a few days ago in which they were talking about how a lot of these testing kits that have been sent out are already contaminated with COVID-19.
Right.
So, of course, they're going to come back
Right.
positive.
Sure, exactly what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, the tainted lot numbers on those tests. They're sent out knowing they're going to come back. This thing's all planned. Plandemic, as much as they would plan this whole COVID-19 scam, they're also, the plandemic includes the tainted tests to give you the false numbers to keep this thing going.
That's terrible.
It is. That's it for me, Mike. Have a great show. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're coming up on a commercial break. We got a caller waiting on the line. And yeah, the big question is why? Why are they doing this? What are we being distracted from? And I think that's what's really going on. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. My mistake. I had my master gain down. A reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraising program, and we need your help to stay on the air to keep on doing what we're doing. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number to make a credit card or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you, and also whatreallyhappened.com thanks you. There's a little donate button on the page there. And again, to everybody who's already donated, a heartfelt thank you. You're helping to keep us going during some very, very dark and difficult times. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Michael, I wish you were a little rougher on Andy. When he, in public, I think he said viruses are basically a myth and they're only spread by injection. I mean, please, we got to take people like this on. We can't spread and disseminate ignorance to people, to your listeners.
Yes.
No, it's not a good plan, and that's part of the problem with the anti-maskers too, in my opinion. Is I don't think it's a good policy to have your audience die off on you because of ignorance.
Yeah, they're dying off enough as it is.
Exactly. I don't think we need to exacerbate matters. But the fact of the matter is, listen, and this also goes for the anti-vaxxers. I'm not a vaxxer on all things. But if it's a very deadly disease like smallpox, yeah, we need vaccinations. Our founders believed in inoculations.
Yes.
And the virus, smallpox, Andy, is spread through person-to-person contact and saliva droplets in an infected person's breath. And if George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin knew that wearing a mask would prevent the spread of smallpox, you better believe George Washington would have mandated wearing masks in public for smallpox because, again, it's a highly deadly, dangerous, horrible disease that scars people's faces, can sterilize men. It's horrible. And so for very bad, deadly diseases, yeah, then you have to take extreme measures. And so, concerning the coronavirus, however, it doesn't seem like it's as deadly as we first thought. But back in February, we saw the videos coming out of China, and we saw how the Chinese handled it. And it only made sense at the time, because we didn't know what we were dealing with, to crack down on it and treat it as a very serious disease, because the Chinese were treating it as a very serious disease. We had no idea. And so I was very alarmed at it. You might remember my calls, how I said how Donald Trump should be stopping the flights. Well, now it seems as though it's not that bad for healthier, younger people, right? But for the elderly, it is very potentially deadly, and the obese. And so I sometimes sympathize with the Marks and the Steve Elkins and the rest of them with their, not wanting to wear a mask in public and all the rest. However, I see, I don't have a full-time job where need to wear a mask. And I went shopping a little bit this week, and I see it as a slight inconvenience to put a mask on.
Yes.
But if it's going to help fight the spread of the disease, I think it's totally reasonable to wear a mask, and I proudly wear them. And I also believe Justin from New Jersey is a very brave dissenter, taking the slings and arrows and, insults by the many people because they don't like his dissenting views. So my hat's off to Dustin for being brave and standing up to the mob, and his steadfastly, sticking to his guns and wanting to wear a mask in public. Because when I'm near people in public, I wear a mask, and I see no shame in that. Because viruses can be deadly, and unlike Andy, they can be spread in the air. And just to read a quick list of deadly viruses to educate Andy. All right. We have the Marburg virus.
Yes.
Ebola is a virus. Rabies is a virus. HIV is a virus. Smallpox, as I said earlier, hantavirus, and influenza. These are all viruses. And dengue fever is a virus. So viruses are something that humans have to deal with. And sometimes when you have a targeted vaccination program like they did in the 40s with smallpox vaccinations, that helped eradicate smallpox in the United States because of vaccinations. So I just think sometimes the medical people and the advisors and the officials in the health departments are good and competent and right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think they kind of drop the ball on some of these things like they are
All
now.
right. Well, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercial. More phone calls. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I've got something I want to throw at you and see what you think.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay. You're on the air.
Dustin, if I'm correct, Dustin his family are new immigrants. They're from the Eastern Bloc, if I'm correct. And so Dustin, I don't know if he was born here or if he came here at an early age, but my experience with new immigrants is many of them go along to get along, and they don't. It takes a couple generations for them to see things the way Americans have been here 4, 5, 6 generations, and just based on my limited knowledge, Dustin came to your site as a disgruntled Obama voter. But I think that many of your listeners, callers, are probably here from 9/11 and even before 9/11 with the Oklahoma City bombing and Hoppy Heidelberg and Ramsey Youssef, and when the FBI used informants and to set up that whole thing. And I don't think Dustin was one of those people. I think he was I think he's a person that came here, just as he said, that he was a disgruntled Obama voter. He voted for Obama, and it didn't work out like Obama was told everybody. So I think there's a big difference, and I think, like I said, I think some of these immigrants, and I'm not 100% sure if Dustin is a total immigrant, but I'm sure his family are. They're new immigrants, and they go along to get along. They're compliant. They don't want to shake anything up because they don't want to, bring any attention to them. And maybe his family has put a lot of pressure on him to be like that. I personally, I agree with Mr. Elkins, and I've said it from the first time I called from your show. I knew that when they couldn't control the repo markets, and then I found out that they did that study back in October, that conference, that pandemic conference, and then this whole thing happened. There's no such thing as as coincidences like that. It's just virtually impossible. And that's when I knew the whole thing was a phony. And Mike, I got to tell you, I've only worn a mask 2 times, and they were to separate visits in the VA. And I don't know anybody that's sick. I work for the Department of Transportation. We don't know anybody that's sick. Oh, sure, we know people that, my father's brother's uncle, yeah, he had it, but I don't know anybody directly that's had it. And I go into the Beltway 3 times a week. So, there's a large population. And so I'm not saying that I believe there is a virus, but I think it's just a minor thing. And I think
I agree, but it's being exaggerated.
There's something else there. Yeah. Mike, the only good thing that's come out of this, I'll be really honest with you, is I've made more money in the first 6 months in the stock market than I've ever made in my whole entire life. I'm not joking you. I'm not exaggerating one bit. But the bad thing about it is I can't use it for anything, really. I mean, I can just keep rolling it over and putting it back into gold miners and various biotech stocks that I think will pop. But I can't do what I normally would do, which would be go to Europe and enjoy a month-long vacation. But that's the only thing that I've seen good happen out of this whole thing. And I give credit to the Mr. Elkins for telling the truth. And he works in a hospital. He's a nurse. And I wholeheartedly believe in what he is saying. This whole thing was planned. It's very, very obvious. And you know what else is going to happen is 2, 3, 4 years from now on your shows, you're going to have a lot of people, just like, it took a lot of people a long time to wake up for 9/11. They're going to say that they were woke up, but there's a lot of people that believe in this thing and think it's real. It's not. It's a pandemic, just like Mr. Elkin says. That's all I got for you, Mike, and I appreciate your show.
Well, thank you very much.
And one of these times soon, I'm gonna send money directly to you, not to RBN, but to you, to help you out, and it's going to be here really soon.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the phone call.
That's compliments of the new Bolton Gold.
Okay. I appreciate that. All right. Well, we're going to let you go. Thank you for the kind words and the kind thoughts. We're going to switch over to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I tuned in kind of late, right, just after 5. And people are picking on Dustin again?
Yes.
Is that what I'm to understand? Like, all you people, you live in the same country. Why can't you just get along? Not everybody's the same, nor should you be. That's the beauty of humanity. We're all different. If we were all the same, it would be a goddamn boring place to be, wouldn't it, Mike?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah. So this, I'm all about the cash, right?
Yeah.
World debt, global debt right now is sitting at around $280 trillion. It's tipping like 300% of GDP.
Yeah.
They can't keep this up.
Nope.
So there's a possible reason why this is happening. Ushering some kind of new world reserve currency, like SDRs or whatever. There's a report put out by the WHO and the UN. I think you've heard about it. I'm pretty sure you have, called A World at Risk.
Yes.
Right? And on page 10, so this was put out in September of 2019. On page 10, it says, and this is, I'm reading this, the United States, including WHO, conducts at least 2 system-wide training and simulation exercises, including one for covering the deliberate release of a lethal respiratory pathogen.
Okay.
And the progress indicator for this is by September 2020.
Interesting. So you're saying this could all be a training exercise, and like so many other earlier training exercises, real people are dying.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's right in there. I'm not making this up. right? It's there. It's right in there on page 10. And of course, this was put out in September of 2019, this report, A World at Risk.
Yes.
And then, of course, we know that just over a year ago, I mean, the economy wasn't doing well.
No.
In the West at all because of massive amounts of debt. I cannot stress enough that debt is sinister because it perpetuates, especially, and because all this currency being created is the debt. It's
Yes.
a loan at interest. The interest is overwhelming the world. It cannot be repaid. Everybody knows it. And all these rich folk that have, like 60 or 70 people literally control half the world's wealth. They don't care what's going to happen. They really don't care because, I mean, when they cash out, they crash everything. So, I mean, like, this has to be somehow reined in. And even if it were possible, under normal circumstances, like a recession / depression, which they won't let happen, right? They won't just let the whole economy crash without intervening. We've seen this the last time. So now we have like a boogeyman to blame this on. The public debt is skyrocketing all across the world. And, when people lose belief, when they lose their belief structures,
yes,
a lot of bad things happen. And one of the belief structures is, of course, currency. So, if this is a pandemic, then that's one of the reasons to do it. Besides, herding a sheep back, into the pen, as it were. Anyway.
Well, I'm looking at the world at risk right now, and 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, it's like the first part's in green, and then the next part's in black, and the second one, the United Nations.
Yeah, I see it right here. Conducts at least 2 system-wide training and simulation exercises, including one for covering the deliberate release of a lethal respiratory pathogen. Boy, that sounds an awful lot like what's been going on.
Doesn't it?
Yep.
So, like, where did this really happen? There was some write-up on the CBC up here in Canada that Canada had sent some kind of pathogen over to China. I don't know. Who knows, Mike? You know what I mean? Like, and this happened like last year around September or November. And of course, we know that Justin Trudeau is a globalist. He's all into this UN shit, right? And pardon me. And
please watch your language.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He wanted that seat at on the UN, and of course, it went to Norway. Even though we dished out like over $26 billion that we didn't have to all these countries for various things, like birth control or whatever else, right?
Yes.
But we didn't stop certain other countries from stoning women to death in the town square. For doing something like speaking out against their religion or whatever, right? Nothing that really mattered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, anyways, that's my 2 cents. And, Dustin, if you're listening, I love hearing you. I love hearing Tom. I love hearing all you guys, but you got to get along here. I mean, you're all living in the same country, and your country is tearing itself apart by design, and it's being influenced. Don't fall for it. Because once it's broken, you can't fix it. Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate your time.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for the call. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people who thinks it has to be broken so that we can fix it. That the way things are right now, the system protects itself, the status quo looks after itself, and I'm still thinking that a Soviet Union-style collapse followed by a reconstruction will be the best for us. And again, I use the Russian republics as an ideal model there. Okay, we're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Al, I like your call. I like you. You got some good contributions, but I'm going to lay something in your ear here. That's why we have the First Amendment, so we don't have to put up with people like Dustin or anybody else. That's why you call here, because what you do here, you can't do in your country. So I just wanted to lay that in your ear and let you think about that.
Okay.
If you follow the past, pardon me?
I was agreeing with you.
What was that? Yeah. The past 3 years of Dustin, if you follow them, and I like Dustin, and I like Paul. But you know what? That's what this First Amendment is about. It's about straightening people out. Antifa's here too. Do we got to get along with them? Do we got to get along with Black Lives Matter? Do we got to get along with the Black Panthers or Jerry Rubin or any of these insurgents that want to take our country down? The overwhelming response to that, resounding response, is no, Al. That's why we still have a bit of freedom and a ton more than what you've ever experienced in Canada. Now I want to get on to Paul. Paul's another one. I like Paul's calls. He's got some great contributions. But like Dustin, he's a socialist. He's got that smooth socialist background. And I'm glad you didn't ban him, because John Stadtmiller wouldn't even let him on his show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the situation. Here's Paul's methodology. Paul starts talking about mass, and then he obfuscates the whole entire situation by referring back to the times of smallpox and all this stuff back a century or so ago, which totally obfuscates the point. And that's what socialists do. That's how they get you to buy into their dogma. But I have told Dustin at least a half dozen times and relayed what Steve Elkins has said, what Steve Elkins has said, his wife has mentioned, at least a half dozen times, but it's not changing Dustin because he drank the Kool-Aid. Okay, and now Paul's a little bit, like I said, he's a little bit smoother socialist dogma, but Paul comes in with smallpox. Well, we're not talking about smallpox, Michael. We're talking about this corona. And you know what? When it comes to Steve Elkins and especially Michael Rivera, and Michael Rivera tells me that he read on the box that it will not stop corona. I'm going to agree with Michael Rivera 100 times out of 100 times, period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So if they want to be in this fantasy, that's great. They can get in there with Fauci and Gates and Deborah, whatever the hell she is, and all these people. But when I hear it from Elkins, who's there every day, and he's got a wife that's at the same place every day, okay? And I hear it from Michael Rivera right out of his own mouth that he read on the box. I'm not going to even give Dustin and Paul and any of these people any rudimentary thought to such derelict commentary. Why didn't Paul? He should have just talked about the bubonic plague, or syphilis or anything. It's just ridiculous, because that's not what we're talking about, and that's how they work their way into brainwashing people, by obfuscating the facts and bringing an irrelevant, irrational, non-congruent thought to the situation, to the narrative. Now, as far as the guy that's making money on gold, you're making, or on stocks or whatever, I wish one of these guys would get on here and sit on here and say, look, you guys are, fellow brethren here on RBN. I want to tell you how to do it, because no one ever says how they do it. They just say they make all this money. And then the parallel I wanted to draw to that, Michael, is, what people seem to forget in the Great Depression, it was horrible. A lot of people died, killed themselves, committed suicide, whatever. But, there were people that made money. And, one of these guys that are doing it, I wish they'd just share that. And, I don't know if Tom's called in today or not, but I'd like to have a round in here from Tom to see what's on his mind. And
okay.
Michael, thank you for a great platform, and have a great
Miles,
show.
I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. I'm going to try and get these last phone calls into the last segment. I'll do my best. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to try and jam some more phone calls into this, our last segment, starting with Teresa in Alaska. Hello, Teresa. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. This is
Yeah.
Charles from Florida. Yeah, I
Oh,
just saw
okay.
the
My
Corbett.
mistake.
You got the wrong person.
I looked at the wrong person. So Charles in Florida, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just saw the Corbett report. They had an interesting article with James Corbett talking about what a bail-in is. We know what bailouts of bankers from 2008 from the dot-com,
Yes.
where we had to send trillions. In 2013, he had a video he made on what happened in Cyprus, where they called it a bail-in, where they just take people that have the money in the bank, they just take their money.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't belong to them anymore. He was explaining how the Bank of International Settlement, some obscure ruling, and they can just bail in and take your money, because when you sign that and instead of bail out, and I just happened to read this thing. I put that up on RBN board op, so you can read the account there. And I just happened to come across another edition here, Reliable News, their site. I put that up on RBN board op. Millions of UK accounts are frozen now due to fraud. It goes on. This is also up on the account there. I wasn't aware of this. Is this a new thing where they can just these unscrupulous bankers can gamble away everything with toxic assets, and now they just have a new bank holiday like 1933? I wasn't aware of this.
They've been changing the laws and regulations for a couple of years now. They can go into your safety deposit box, and they can take them. Our advice to everybody who listens to the show is you should only have in the bank what you need to cover your immediate obligations. Keep everything else under your own control, buried in a mayonnaise jar out back in the backyard or something. And, obviously don't tell anybody that's what you're doing. But yeah, banks are not safe for anybody but the bankers.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this thing and what's happening in England right now. If this is true, I guess it is.
Well,
because of fraud.
There's a lot of fraud going on right now. Anyway, listen, Charles, we got to let you go. I'm going to try and fit let Teresa in Alaska in here for just a minute. Teresa, what's on your mind? Okay, she dropped. Let's go to, there's the music. The show is over. My apology to those callers who did not get on. Please call in tomorrow. We are going to be live here. And stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN, spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We cannot do this without you. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.